This episode of Nos Audietis is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Audietis since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to...
This is Nos Audietis.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
A sideline fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nicoladero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is good.
Seattle Sounders, the greatest MLS team in history.
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Portland can't say it's cheating.
We want to win. Let's see on Sunday, bro.
Welcome to another edition of Nos Audietis, sponsored by Full Pull Wines, Watson's Counter, and our new subscribers. This is episode 424, and we're recording on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. I'm your host, Jeremiah Shan. Joining me as usual is my co-host, Aaron Campo, and of course, our producer, Lickett. Well, coming out of a 3-week break in which they presumably worked on tactics, got rejuvenated, and were hoping to start the stretch run off strong, the Sounders instead turned in one of their worst performances of the season, a 2-0 loss at home to Atlanta United. The first half was especially bad, with the Sounders surrendering 70% of possession and getting run off the pitch at times. The second half was only better by comparison. All of that leaves me about as concerned as I have been about the prospects of this team. Aaron, what did you make of it?
Oh, I think they say you're supposed to make chicken salad with it. But, you know, I wasn't super successful in that. I was as mad after that game as I've been in years, I think, after a Sounders game. I think it was the same stuff, right? I mean, that was sort of the crux of it for me, is that you had 3 weeks. We heard a lot about, this is a veteran team. There's plenty of talent on this team. This team still has plenty of talent to win the league. You know, we think we've identified like some things we need to work on. We're going to come out sharp. And they didn't. They played at home against a team that had just as long of a layoff, so they didn't have the excuse of like, well, you know, Atlanta went deeper, so they were a little sharper.
No, it was all the normal excuses. Like, and I think that a lot of their bad performances this year you can fairly chalk up to short rest or tough road game, or they're missing a bunch of starters. None of that applied.
Yeah, not. I mean, and Atlanta has not been a good team this year. So it's not like this was a juggernaut coming in there. I mean, Atlanta, I think, has been kind of similar to the Sounders, where they're a team with a lot of talent who just haven't been able to put it all together. And it looked like Atlanta figured something out over the break, and it looked like the Sounders, if anything, got worse. Things that they had done well all year, even in poor games, even games that had been frustrating or what have you, they were not executing. The second half was nominally better. The possession was a little bit more even. There were more chances created, but a lot of that is because Atlanta just didn't have to do anything, and they kind of knew they didn't have to do anything. The Sounders were just completely toothless. And, you know, it's one of those game state things, right? Where if you're leading 2-0 at halftime on the road, you're probably just going to kind of chill out and cede some possession and considering that Atlanta did that, and the Sounders still, I don't think were able to even come anywhere close to getting even in possession for the game. Didn't create a ton of chances, didn't really create any good chances until late, when they had sort of like a little bit of a flurry of chances. It was just as bad as that could have possibly gone, I think.
I will add the Sounders weren't down 2-0 at halftime. They were down 1-0.
Oh, right. That's right.
And so it was the 63rd minute or whatever that Atlanta scored. But your point stands. I don't think the Sounders were threatening, and I don't think Atlanta had to feel threatened. The chances that the Sounders created were mostly off of, poor plays by Atlanta, like just bad giveaways. Their best chance was that chance that Freddie Montero hit wide somehow, where it was he basically got passed to him, which is the second time in 2 games that a Sounders forward has had it passed to him, and they've failed to convert the chance. Rui Diaz had a similar situation against Monterrey. But yeah, this was just, they weren't creating much. There's a stat called expected goals on target, and it's not very predictive, but I do think it's pretty illustrative in this case. The Sounders had 0.07 expected goals, which just, I think, really illustrates how undangerous the Sounders seemed in this game.
Yeah, they had plenty of shots, but
it's 16 shots, a lot of shots.
Yeah, but and I know, like, one of the most, I think, fundamental things about analyzing soccer is that shots on target is not a super meaningful statistic
from a predictive perspective.
From a predictive perspective, right? Like, if you've got 30 shots, that tells you a lot more than having 4 or 5 shots on target out of 7 or 8 total.
Right.
But I think in this game, it tells a pretty accurate story of what happened in the game. The Sounders they had to take a lot of speculative shots. They just were not breaking down Atlanta at all. And yeah, I mean, it was dire. It was pretty rough. For me, it was as bad as anything in 2016. With obviously the difference being the Sounders have won a ton of things since then, but just in terms of how I felt during this game about where this team was at and where they were going, just as bad.
I think there's been times that the Sounders have looked bad or worse from a purely aesthetic perspective, but those were mostly in years where ultimately there was the hope that a big addition would bail them out. And I think what is going wrong right now, what's so worrying about it, is like, this is the team.
Yep.
Like, they can change who's playing, obviously, and maybe that's what unlocks it. But this group of players, this was their first choice group of players. Christian Roldan not starting aside, this is a highly decorated roster, and everyone was fit, everyone was ready to go, and they just didn't look good. I don't think they can roll out that central midfield again, where it's Nico, JP, and Rusnak. Like, that to me is your first choice midfield, and I don't think they can afford to use it again.
Yeah,
it just got completely overrun. It was a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the scary thing, and I think, if I'm being charitable to the decisions to keep running these lineups out, I can understand how it's difficult to give up on that collection of players, to say, like, these guys that have won so many games for us and been so successful are just not getting it done, and we have to do something different. And when doing something different is going to entail going to younger players who maybe haven't shown that much yet, right? Like, trusting that somebody's going to be able to take advantage and take advantage of getting the playing time that maybe they didn't think they were going to get. I get that that's a difficult decision to make, but it's past due at this point. You have to do it.
Yeah, and along those same lines, like, I don't think it's fair to scapegoat any one player. Like, Nico Ladero is going to end up, I think, taking a little bit of a fall in this situation, and he doesn't. I think he's probably sensitive to that idea, and it's unfair. I mean, he's working his butt off. I don't doubt that. I think his desire is there, but there's just that the margins. I think this is a good reminder. The margins between being one of the best players in the league and barely being able to get on the field are pretty thin. Yeah. And if you just lose a little bit of sharpness, that's going to knock you down. And when you're a Nico Ladero, who that's where you excel in those margins, he's not excelling in those margins. I don't know the last time he hit a pass that I was like, oh, that's Nico Ladero.
Yeah.
Let alone, he obviously had that goal against Monterrey. But other than that, he's not been dangerous offensively, and that's why he's on the field. Like, you need him to be your best offensive player. He's not been anywhere close to that. Similarly, Raul Ruiz, he had a chance this game where he got it near the top of the penalty box. He popped it up to himself, and not really being challenged, and then he hits it 10 feet over the bar.
Yeah.
And that's just go ahead.
Well, the thing that's weird about Raul is that with Nico, you can just see it, right? He just doesn't have it anymore, and that's understandable. It's not shocking. It sucks. It's depressing to see, but like, there are physical changes to him that have made him this way. Raul does not look that way to me. Like, when I watch him,
like
yeah, I mean, clearly he's not quite as quick as he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's just doing things wrong. Like, he's taking poor touches.
Yeah.
His finishing touches is way off. And so in that regard, it's like he's always kind of been a streaky player. And so I think you can deal with that a little bit when you're playing well and winning, in spite of that. But I have some hope that Raul will put it together. And I have some hope that Nico will be able to find a niche that he can excel in.
Mm-hmm.
Although we've kind of talked about this before, his skill set is not really necessarily one that lends itself to coming onto a game and changing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's rough, man. It's depressing to watch. And I think my thing is that I think that this is where I'm at, and it's not a great place to be. And I hope I'm wrong. I don't think this team is going to turn it around. I think they might limp into the playoffs. I think that they might, they'll win some games here or there. Like, they're not going to lose every game the rest of the year, but I don't think that they're going to hit their stride. But I would much rather them get there and have that experience, trying new things, getting younger players some playing time, just not like allowing me a different 90 minutes than the one I've been watching for the last year is really all I'm asking at this point.
Yeah. And I understand there's some irony in me saying this, because I think we were both sort of beating the drum that Obed Vargas can't be playing 90 minutes every game. But like, in my defense, I also was because I wanted to see Josh Atencio playing,
right?
Who is another young guy. But like, I don't think there's anything to lose at this point in playing a Reed Baker Whiting at left wing back, or getting Obed and Josh onto the field, or like, these are the kind of changes that I think the Sounders need to be open to. I think the worst thing they could do this year is limp into the playoffs, relying almost exclusively on their veteran players, knowing that most of those veteran players aren't going to be back next year. Like, what a waste of time for everybody. Like, if it's one thing if you think those veterans potentially going to catch lightning in a bottle and lead you to MLS Cup, I suppose that's one reason. And if they had won this game and you're like, oh, look, they still got it. You don't really think they're going to do it for 10 straight games, but like, you at least can. There's no reason right now to think that this group has it.
I don't think this is the 2013 Galaxy. Like, right. I don't think that this is a team with a ton of talent that still has it in them, that is playing poorly during the regular season because they know they just have to turn it on come playoffs. That I don't think that's. I do think there's something to be said about. I think there is potentially the talent on this team to do that, but I don't think there's any more reason to think that talent is the veteran is like all 11 veteran players. Like, right,
this team can't. Again, like, I don't think it's any one guy's fault, but they do need someone in there that's going to spark them. And I just don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, my focus is probably unfairly on Nico and Raul at times. But they're also, I mean, they're like the star
obvious
players.
Yeah, exactly. They're the obvious one. Like if Christian Roldan is starting, I think it's almost a no-brainer. You got to bench Rui Diaz and put Morris up top. You got to try it. Like, I'm not saying it's 100% going to work, but you have to try that.
You got to try it once at least.
Right. And similarly, like I think you are probably better off, even though Rusnak didn't look gangbusters as a 10. I think you sort of owe it to yourself to try him there a little bit more. And even if it's just so you can get Obed or Josh onto the field, I'd really like it to be Josh. I don't know what Josh did to like be banished from the field the way that he seems to have been banished.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It is very weird, especially since I know he has big fans on the coaching staff.
Yeah.
But it's a weird one.
You can also play without a 10. You don't have to have a 10.
Right.
You know,
that's also a very good point.
I mean, you have to be willing to abandon your tactical philosophies to some extent.
Right.
And I think a lot, I mean, frankly, I think a lot of the reason Nico has been struggling so much is that teams have come up with strategies to neutralize players that play like him. And for a while, he was so good that it didn't really matter. And that's not really as much the case anymore, you know? So maybe you want to explore the idea of just not relying on that position for your creativity.
It's a very, very weird situation. Not very weird, very sad situation.
It is.
And there's not easy answers. I think that's what's it's not like there's definitely been a stretch where I kind of convinced myself, if they can just get Christian Roldan back, he sort of unlocks this whole thing and it all fits now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's going on anymore.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think like I said, I don't think the season's totally lost, but I am far more pessimistic right now than I have been at any point this season.
Yeah. I think that my perspective on this is that I understand how the Sounders ended up here, and I'm okay with them ending up here in a vacuum, right?
But they can't let it.
But yeah, they have to acknowledge that they're here and at least try to do something. And like you said, even if that something is, we got to see what we've got in, our younger players, we've got to throw them into the fire and see what they can do. We've got to try some new tactical looks. We've whatever it is they need to do, but it's a waste of everybody's time to keep doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah. I will say if I'm being kind, I don't know if this is even kind, but I think maybe the one argument for using the lineup that they did this week is sort of to get to the point. Like they felt like they needed to get to this point. Like you kind of had to hit rock bottom, and now it's a lot easier to make those lineup changes and saying like, look guys, there's no way we can't run away from what just happened. We have to accept this. And if we don't do anything, it's, we look worse. And so maybe this is the spark maybe that's the spark they needed. I don't know. But this week is going to tell us a lot about this team's prospects. They're going to go at Minnesota, at Austin, home to Timbers. If they do well in these games, I think we're seeing a very different tune, and I reserve the right to become enthusiastic about this team again.
Sure. Yeah.
But if they don't do well, this, they won't be out of the playoffs. But I think if they this week could really determine their season. And I say that without hyperbole.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I mean, I think it can determine a lot of things. And, I think that I don't necessarily expect them to play well in these games, but I think the approach they take to these games, I think the lineups they use, I think all of that stuff is going to tell you a lot about what the next, 3 to 6 to 9 months is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, we have a really long mailbag episode later in the week.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this might do it for this one.
Yeah.
I
We don't have anything else to say. I mean, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's not that much to analyze from this game. I did want to add one note. If you are a Sounder at Heart reader, and I assume virtually, if not literally, every listener of this podcast is, you surely noticed that we went through a rather tectonic change this week. Sounder at Heart has officially left SB Nation, Vox Media, and is on a new platform. It is a reader-supported platform. We've been blown away at the support that we've received. We are not yet at a point where we can say like, oh, this is where everyone did their part. We can do this forever. But we made a lot of progress, a lot of progress. And I'm thrilled. I was blown away at the support. We have people reaching out. It's interesting, the readers that kind of came out of the woodwork saying like, I read you every day, I listen to every episode, you've probably never seen a comment from me, and it's like, oh well, that's nice. Like I appreciate like it's kind of neat to hear from these people. So it's really cool. I think a woman named Jasmine Wu Lickett and Aaron and I worked with her pretty closely, and actually Emily Cummings helped out with feedback as well on this logo that she designed. We're going to have a whole design system that kind of incorporates Nos Arietes and Ride of the Valkyries. I'm really excited to be able to unveil that soon, but I hope people like what they're seeing. I mean, it's an ad. I think the platform is pretty slick. There's not ads everywhere. And, I think this can be a fun, good thing for the community.
Yeah, I agree.
I have to say, a couple weeks ago, I was really worried because how dumb is it to try to launch a reader supported website for something that people are mad at the product of?
Yeah. In some ways, like possibly the nadir of the Sounders popularity and
right. Yeah, but, maybe, it could be. But anyway, I just wanted to say it's been really fun. I feel like I don't know. I have a lot of emotions. One of which is like, I almost feel like I diffused a bomb just because I was really worried that this thing was going to blow up in my face. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like it is right now, but who knows? I guess
so far so good.
Don't. I haven't MacGrubered this thing quite yet.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, Aaron, it's been a pleasure.
As always.
And so I guess thank you to our sponsors, of course, Full Pull Wines and Watson's Counter, neither of whom we could be doing this thing without. So I really appreciate their support. Thank you again to everyone who signed up to become a subscriber to Sounder at Heart. And with that, I'm going to sign off. I'm Jeremiah Shan, saying goodbye for Aaron, Campo, and Lickett. This is Nos Arietes. And remember, you will never yell alone.
We love you. Let's win another one!